Hello, my friends. Welcome back. I'm Lei. Tomorrow's Halloween, and tonight I have a story for you. It's about the most haunted place in all of China, the Forbidden City, and its most famous ghost stories. The year was 1916. Beijing was in chaos. Yuan Shikai, who had declared himself emperor, had just been forced to step down after only 3 months. Soon after, he died suddenly. Across China, warlords fought for power, but behind the vermilion walls of Forbidden City, life seemed eerily calm. Inside still lived the last emperor of the Qing dynasty, the boy Puyi. He was just 10 years old. Even though he had abdicated years earlier, a deal with Yuan Shikai let him keep his imperial title, an allowance of 4 million taels of silver a year, and his residence inside the palace. Within those walls, he was still treated like the son of heaven. One summer night, Puyi couldn't sleep. The chirping of crickets outside grew louder and louder. On impulse, he jumped out of bed, grabbed his younger brother Puyi, and ran into the gardens. Startled eunuchs and maids rushed after them with lanterns, chasing the two boys through the moonlight courtyards. Laughing, the brothers chased crickets through the imperial garden until they reached a rock grotto called Duixiu Hill, a 10-meter-tall mound built from jagged Taihu stones with a small cave at its base. Hearing crickets inside, they crouched down and listened. But instead of chirping, another sound broke the silence. The thunder of hooves, the clash of steel, the cries of soldiers, and the roar of battle. Startled, Puyi thought, maybe the eunuchs hid a phonograph to scare me. He pulled his brother into the cave, but it was empty. Still, the sounds grew louder. Mongolian voices shouting commands, horses screaming, war horns blaring. Then the sounds changed again. The heavy march of troops drilling, Manchu commands echoing, forward, retreat. The synchronized stomps of hundreds of soldiers shook the cave walls. Puyi's legs gave out. Terrified, he grabbed his brother and fled back to their quarters. That night, he couldn't sleep a wink. Why was the boy emperor so shaken? Though he had lost his throne at 6, his education continued under the strict traditions of the Qing court. He was tutored by some of China's greatest scholars, learning the Confucian classics, Manchu, Mongolian, and later English, math, and modern science. His tutors forbade him to talk about ghosts. If he ever showed curiosity, they shut him down instantly. So Puyi didn't believe in ghosts until that night in 1916. Those sounds of battle from the grotto shattered his disbelief. For the first time, the young emperor felt real fear of the unseen. Years later, Puyi wrote about this night in his memoir. He admitted that it changed him. From then on, he respected ghosts. He believed what he had heard were the spirits of his ancestors, still drilling their troops, still charging into battle in another world. And Puyi wasn't the only one to meet the palace ghosts. Fast forward to 1966. The Forbidden City was no longer an imperial palace. It was now the Palace Museum. But this was the first year of the Cultural Revolution. To protect the priceless relics from Red Guards, the army stationed an entire company of soldiers inside the palace. Most were just teenagers, 17, 18 years old. 1 week after they moved in, a platoon leader casually mentioned at lunch that he'd been having nightmares. Always the same one. He walked through a narrow corridor and saw a woman in Qing palace dress. Her face was blurred. In silence, she lifted a jade pendant and shook it at him. The company commander froze. His chopsticks fell from his hand. He had dreamed the same thing. Soon, more soldiers spoke up. Half the company, more than 50 young men, admitted they had the exact same dream, the same woman, the same corridor, the same jade pendant. Panic spread throughout the unit. Many begged to be reassigned. Even the commander, now terrified, filed an official report. Not long after, the military made a new rule. Soldiers guarding the Forbidden City would rotate regularly. None of them would ever again sleep inside the inner palaces. From then on, they camped outside the Meridian Gate, the southern entrance to the complex. And that's how the ghost stories of the Forbidden City began to spread. A single warning became a Beijing legend. Never stay inside the Forbidden City after 6 p.m. Now jump to 1998. Japan's national broadcaster, NHK, came to Beijing to film a documentary called Treasures of the Forbidden City. They wanted sweeping shots of the palace, glowing red walls, golden roofs to capture the grandeur of Chinese architecture. Chinese authorities cooperated fully. Tourists were barred for the day. Only the Japanese crew and a few staff remained inside. Filming went smoothly until late afternoon. At 5 p.m., which was closing time, Chinese staff suggested wrapping up, but the Japanese crew insisted just one more hour. They moved to a narrow passage on the east side of the palace, the East Corridor, also known as the Yin-Yang Way. Why such a name? Because even at noon, under blazing sunlight, one wall is always bright while the other remains in shadow. At night, under the moon, that same eerie split appears. Locals said the corridor was where the bodies of palace maids and eunuchs were once carried out for burial, the path between life and death, yin and yang. It was also the same corridor where the soldiers of 1966 had dreamed of the woman with the jade pendant. The Japanese crew thought the spot looked perfect, atmospheric, mysterious. Cameras were set up. The Chinese staff said nothing, though their hearts raced. Then the sky changed. Clouds rolled in. A crack of thunder. Rain poured down in sheets. The crew ran for cover under the eaves. When the storm finally passed, the sky was dim. They rushed back to grab a few last shots before sunset and froze. Out of the wall itself, a line of palace maids in Qing robes stepped silently into the corridor. One by one, they crossed and disappeared into the opposite wall, silent, seamless, as if the bricks themselves were doors between two worlds. The crew screamed, cameras dropped, everyone fled the Forbidden City in terror. Since then, the story of the palace maids in the wall has become Beijing's most famous ghost tales. Search online and you will find dozens of versions, but all carry the same warning. When the sun goes down, never linger inside the Forbidden City. But what do you think? Are these stories real or just tales born out of fear and imagination? Some say they are fiction, recycled from old novels about haunted palaces. Others say it's psychology, a shared nightmare spreading through suggestion. But some people insist that the ghosts are real. Let's go far from Beijing to Memphis, Tennessee in the 1980s. A psychiatrist named Dr. Gregory Little ran a clinic there, treating prisoners struggling with drug addiction. Again and again, his patients described terrifying visions, monsters chasing them, demons trying to kill them. And here's the strange part. It happened even when they weren't high. At first, Dr. Little thought these were hallucinations, but brain scans showed no damage. In his clinic stood a machine, the Gram Potentializer, a large therapy chair that emitted gentle electromagnetic waves and rocked patients like a cradle. Those who were panicked or agitated would calm down the moment they sat in it. Some even drifted into peaceful sleep. If these were just hallucinations, why would electromagnetic waves make them vanish? To test it, Dr. Little invited a Native American shaman, White Eagle of the Cheyenne tribe, to observe a patient through a one-way mirror. The doctor said nothing about the experiment, but the moment White Eagle looked, he gasped. There are little beings crawling around him. He described them as small blue figures darting in and out of the man's aura. Then the machine was switched on. Within minutes, White Eagle whispered, "They've run away." He said he saw them slip through the walls and vanish. The patient, meanwhile, calmed down and fell asleep. When he awoke, the terror was gone. But as guards led him out to a waiting police van, White Eagle suddenly stiffened. "They're back," he said. He watched the same blue beings crawl out of the walls and slip into the van. For a week, the shaman observed more sessions and always saw the same thing. Some spirits fled when the machine ran, others resisted, but once it stopped, they returned. Dr. Little reached a startling conclusion. Ghosts or spirit-like entities might actually exist. His theory: they inhabit parts of the electromagnetic spectrum that the human eye can't see. Think about it. What we call reality is just a sliver of that spectrum, visible light. Behind it are radio waves, X-rays, gamma rays, all invisible, but all real. Maybe ghosts simply live in those unseen frequencies, and perhaps people like White Eagle have senses tuned to perceive them. Dr. Little believed that drug addicts emitted a special energy that attracted these entities, and that his electromagnetic machine disrupted them, driving them away. So why do ghosts haunt old palaces, castles, and mansions? Maybe because such places are soaked with memory. Maybe because centuries of emotion, power, love, betrayal, death weaken the wall between worlds. And if that's true, then the Forbidden City, a palace of emperors, empresses, executions, and intrigue, will always have its ghosts. And the line between the seen and the unseen may be thinner than we think. Do you believe it? Well, let me know what you think. If you enjoyed this Halloween story, don't forget to subscribe and follow. Until next time, sleep well if you can.